Welcome to the very first edition of Ice Right. On this program, we tell you what the Constitution says about issues. In this particular edition, we put the spotlight on a girl in faraway Wusuta, a town in the Volta region. She has been locked and kept away from the light for as many as 10 years and more. We'll tell you why. We'll also explore the many rights violations and possibilities for redress. My name is Gifty Andoh Appiah. Welcome to the show. Wusuta is a clean-looking community near Andoh in the Volta region. In the belly of this town, a girl of about 14 years old is kept all by herself and the lock and key on the inside of this building. Cobwebs and dust dominates this interior. The corner of a stuffy floor is Bless's part of her mother's single bedroom, where she has been kept almost all her life. She is suffering from an unknown ailment. Years of loneliness have passed by. Bless can now feel motherly tenderness. She can now experience the gentle breeze slapping her face with hope. Bless's mother, Stella, was impregnated by a stranger who visited Wusuta over a decade ago. His family later reported his death and refused responsibility for the child. Stella's account about Bless's situation was laced with confusing loose ends that I tried to knit together. For as many years as the mother is unable to confirm, Bless was kept indoors until Emmefa and her friend decided one day to follow up on their suspicions, one of many occasions when her mother had traveled and left Bless all by herself.
The lady came to the house and then was asking of her. So we told her that the lady has traveled, and she said, how about the baby? They said the baby is in the room. Then I got to know that she's having a baby like that in the room. So she has to open the window, pick the baby out, and then I saw the baby. I said, so there is a baby like this in the room because I don't hear any cry from the room. So the lady picked the baby out, sent her home, bathed her, feed her. When the baby's mother was back, the lady was angry that why did she go and break her window, pick the baby out. So sometimes I used to ask her, why won't you bring the baby out? Sometimes it tends to quarrel between I and her.
Emmefa tells me that Bless used to feed on her own feces.
For some number of days, the mother is not around. Sometimes she even poo-poo when she eats the poo-poo herself. Me, I've witnessed it myself, eating the poo-poo. She is and then she was eating it.
An allegation Bless's mother refutes.
When she is back from farming, she realizes she has poop. She changes and cleans the place and then puts new clothes there for her. Then she washes those ones. But she has never seen her eating the feces.
Perhaps this allegation is true, because food is another major issue for this household. Bless is left many times not just lonely, but on an empty stomach.
She eats once breakfast and she has not eaten yet.
Why?
This particular moment she's not having food. The one that this children's father brought, she has used all, and she has grown new crops and they are not yet ready for harvesting. That's why she's not having any food now.
Stella has come to her family house to beg for some food. She is met with anger and accusation of diverting food meant for her daughter.
You want food for Bless. What have you eaten yourself? Is Bless the only hungry one?
The family blames Stella for the current situation that Bless finds herself in. They say Bless is incapacitated because of her mother's refusal to comply with the herbalist who was to heal Bless. Thankfully, there's still some food to spare, except with stern directions.
The herbal doctor was treating her. It got to a point then the mother said no, she will not allow the doctor to treat her anymore. They don't know why. So from then the condition became worse again. She can't move the limbs, she can't talk, but first she can make movement of the lips. You know what the person is trying to say. But from then the child cannot say anything, cannot do anything.
At this time, the family agrees that Bless be given up for adoption to any interested institution because everyone in the family is engaged one way or the other.
She's not the type that sits at one place. She goes about working, coming back, traveling a lot. So she cannot take Bless in now to stay with her. If Bless were to be working, that would have been better. She can take care back. Now that Bless is not able to work, she cannot take care of her.
Stella's main occupation is farming. She has 2 other children besides Bless, and any food or income is shared among them all. Physically, Bless looks incapacitated, although she can move her upper body around. Her mother has to do practically everything for her. She even has to feed her. But Bless interacts freely with other children if they only will come closer. She loves to hear her name. It is this interaction she has missed for the better part of her life until she was discovered. The long-term house arrest of sort seems to have affected her brains. Her medical reports show she was a normal child from the beginning until a series of convulsions attacked her. In a referral note and the only document that discusses her condition, the consulting physician at the time writes, quote, "The sickness has affected her brain," unquote. Her mother cannot state for a fact, but it seems nothing was done from the day the referral was issued. Adam is co-founder of Heart Haven Children's Home, where neglected and orphaned children are catered for. He was the first contact made by those who discovered Bless. Adam believes the extended family has contributed greatly to Bless's incapacitation.
Assuming Bless is a rich person, everybody say, oh, the person is Parishes, my family member. We bear the same name. So if these family members, I think if these family members are really committed to help this child, they would have done more than they have done. This is a single mother who lost the husband after the girl was born, and she has 3 other kids to take care of. Looking at her and where she lives, I think she lacks knowledge about disability. I think the family members should be ashamed. I think that they should be more responsible. They should be more proactive than they are now. I don't think the mother should be blamed for this.
He has said giving up Bless to any institution is not the way forward.
The best way is to empower the mother to be able to do it. And that is exactly what we are doing now. And that is exactly what we want to do. We give community-based caregiving. So we want to train her mother to be able to do it better than she does it now. So I don't think an orphanage or a children's home is the best option.
Adam works with medical students and volunteers from abroad. One of them has been re-examining Bless.
The outcome of the examination the lady, the doctor told me that she is physically able, but mentally she is mentally disabled. So that is what we need to look at, what kind of mental disability she has, and see the way forward for her.
He is now seeking financial support for Stella so she can take care of Bless. But the fact that some of Bless's rights have been violated still remains. What happened to her right to education, the freedom of movement, the right to clothing, shelter and food, all of which culminate into compromising the very right to life? Besides, there are also bigger socio-economic issues associated with the story of Bless. To minimize violation of Bless's basic rights, if not prevent them completely, Edem has employed neighbors to police regular care for Bless and for her to be at least left outside for fresh air. Grace is one of them. She lives adjacent to the building where Bless has been caged all these years.
If there was somebody to be like supporting her, she would have, the child would have been better off than this, because there were nobody supporting her. From the beginning, people were supporting her, but it got to a point no one is supporting her anymore. Since there is no support coming anymore until Edem came in, that is why it looked like she wasn't taking good care of the child. So her role now is to remind her every morning to take care of the child, bath her and bring her out. Then if she's also having something like food, she gives them.
Her account questions the strength of the Ghanaian social protection system, which could have made for the absence of able parents in the life of Bless. Francisca was born in the same week as Bless. This perhaps is how Bless should look like.
My mother told me that the time they give birth to me, some diseases come to the town. So it affects both of us. But because they take care of me, they have nobody to take care of them. That's why she's like that. They should help her, so she also become the person I am now, or how I am now.
At this point, it seems obvious that the period of isolation has aggravated the mental situation prescribed earlier in Bless's life by the doctors. Here she is at 14, being bathed and clothed by her mother. Stella has been doing this since she gave birth to Bless, until the time when she perhaps got tired and stopped. Thanks to concerned persons in this community, Bless can once again feel the soothing touch of water on her head, face and body. A decade-old coiled-up feet now stretched. Her reaction tells it all. Bless now looks forward to brighter days when her right shall remain intact and healing shall find her. The story of Bless is quite a story, very touching indeed. It is rather unfortunate though that as we speak, she is almost a vegetable. The story begs many questions. Bless is obviously not enjoying her childhood, or she hasn't enjoyed her childhood. She has been denied of the right to education and a host of other rights. Her story is not in isolation. There are many stories. There are many children in this country who have suffered similar fate. Only their stories are yet to be told. With me to discuss this particular issue and the general issue of rights is a lawyer and human rights activist who specializes in children's rights. He's also president of the African Heights Foundation. Dennis Armah joins me, and good evening to you, sir. Many thanks for your time.
Good evening, and I'm pleased to be here too.
Thanks for honoring our invitation. But let me find out, we've seen the story, and it's indeed a touching story. 14 years, and you still have to rely on your mother for simple things like easing yourself, for example. What are the violations that, what are the violations of right, or what are the rights violations that we can pinpoint in this particular story?
Well, from the video, there's a girl who says that they are age mates,
yeah.
But right now she looks like a completely different person. And that goes to the core of the law governing disability rights, which is mainly discrimination and the application of all the other human rights that apply generally to anybody at all.
Right.
And so the problem with disability rights and violations of disability rights is that they are often violations of the rights that we all enjoy because of the discrimination that people with disability suffer. And so you'd realize that from Article 29 of our Constitution and the other international human rights instruments governing disability, there is always the emphasis on ensuring that persons with disability enjoy life as much as possible like any other person. So in a situation where this girl is unable to live the life that her peers live, she's unable to enjoy the freedom of movement, she's unable to enjoy leisure, she's unable to enjoy education, she does not receive proper health care, she does not receive proper food or parental responsibility. All these are violations which cut across our laws, and there are several laws on that. Our own Children's Act frowns upon all these violations. The Disability Act, the Constitution, as I mentioned, the Constitution has detailed provisions on disability rights, which shows the importance that is attached to persons with disability. Unfortunately, the implementation of it sometimes becomes a problem in a society like ours.
Right. Now, let's narrow in quite a bit on, let's say, the right to health and the right to education. In this case, now we have a woman who is obviously ignorant, so she cannot take care of a child because, first of all, she wasn't even sure that this girl was disabled. So how do we classify this? And it gets me a bit confused because I find it also difficult to blame the mother because people have argued that she would have killed her.
That's true. In most communities, you find there's a certain level of rejection of persons with disability. We have classified society that this is how a normal person is supposed to be like. So once you fall outside that, then you are abnormal. But the emphasis of the law is to enable persons with disability to participate fully in life. And you realize that if you give them the facilities that they need, they are often able to excel. And the examples of that, the former US President Franklin Roosevelt led the US through the Second World War. It was probably the most challenging time of US leadership. That was when the Americans came on the world stage, but he was disabled. Today, the scientist who is regarded as the greatest scientist in the 20th century next to Albert Einstein speaks only with the help of a computer. But he's completely paralyzed, but he speaks with the help of a computer, and he teaches in Cambridge University. He's regarded as one of the best scientists in a century.
Sorry to cut you there, but that brings me to a very pressing issue of social structures. You know, because I've been trying to find out and work through my mind to come to the realization of who is at fault in this particular case. Now, here's a mother who is struggling to take care of her child. This child, she tells me that from the age of 2, she had a convulsion, and since then, she had not been able to recover. She doesn't work, first of all. She is an unemployed farmer whose farm is not doing well, and she has 3 other children to take care of. So she locks this girl up in the room, hoping probably that she will die. Who is at fault?
There is enough blame to go around, but if we may put it in the form of responsibility, there is enough responsibility to go around, right from central government to local government, to parents, to traditional leaders, to civil society organizations. We all must bear a part of the responsibility for what children suffer in such situations. But you realize that at all levels also, we are not pulling our weight to mainstream people who are born with disability into society. And so society ends up disabling them further. Because what society is supposed to do is to facilitate their participation in life. And if you do so, the examples from around the world show that they can actually sometimes display superior abilities. If, for example, the light should go off completely, you would realize that in that situation, a blind man would be able to navigate his way far better than those who are sighted. In that situation, the blind man manifests superior ability and not disability than the people we may regard as normal. And so it is society which makes disability exclusive of persons who bear them. And therefore, if society is able to accept people like that and facilitate their participation in society with the proper education, the proper health care, the proper rehabilitation where necessary, they can contribute effectively to society. On the other side, if we don't do these things, they become a burden on us, and it's often difficult for someone to bear the burden of another human being's life throughout his or her lifetime. And so inevitably they would get poor treatment from those they depend on. You naturally get fatigued, like a mother does, and has to lock the child up. But if you take such a child to the proper educational institution, the special schools, they can train the child to be able to do a lot of things for herself.
Whose fault is it in this case where I cannot take care of my child? In fact, I can barely provide food for her. First of all, she doesn't have the information. Whose responsibility is it to provide this kind of information to mothers who have such children, or to generally to society? And how was this information supposed to have reached this woman?
There is a National Council for Persons with Disability established under the Disability Act, and it was inaugurated in 2009. But unfortunately, in terms of activity, there hasn't been a lot of promotional activity as is supposed to be the case. So we have a council, and if you check the 2015 budget, there is virtually no mention of disability. And so sometimes we create the institutions and we don't fund those institutions to do the work that they are supposed to do. And it's the same with almost all institutions which are supposed to do promotional work in our country, because sometimes we underestimate the effect of bad attitudes and the lack of knowledge on the quality of life that we have in this country. Because if people are empowered with knowledge alone, they would often do the best for themselves and their children. It is unnatural for a mother not to love the child or to put the child through such a situation. But in the absence of knowledge and support, such things may result. Not that it's an excuse for mothers in such a situation or parents in such a situation, but we need the education to go down, and at all levels. If local government officials are even well trained on that, you have enough public health officials going around, and these structures help the whole nation, because the education does not just come for persons with disability, but people who are able to provide education on various aspects of health, on child rights and other issues. But unfortunately, very little is done with education and promotional issues in this country. So people often lack the knowledge that should empower them to do what is their responsibility.
So let me find out from you. In this case, we've established that some of her rights have been trampled upon. Well, if you like, all her rights have been trampled upon. God is just keeping her alive. But what does the Constitution say as far as what has to be done to parents who do this to their children? I mean, it's not that they want to do this to their children, but they are compelled, like I like to say, they are compelled, and out of circumstances, out of the lack of certain social structures, certain necessary social structures, they are compelled to do this to their children. What does the law say?
First of all, people can be prosecuted for child neglect, depending on the nature of the acts of the parents. So if a child is neglected, that is something which can give rise to a prosecution. And then if a child is taken to an institution, that may not be the end of the matter. But sometimes conditions in those institutions themselves may be very unsuitable. In that situation as well, the government can be held responsible for it in the courts. It is a
I'm particularly interested in that. How do we hold the government responsible for this particular case in question in court? How do we do that?
Article 29 is part of the Constitution.
Okay.
And the human rights provisions of the Constitution are enforceable.
Okay.
So you can enforce such provisions if you go to the High Court. The only thing is sometimes when it comes to things which have to do with the government providing facilities, the expectation or the principle involved is that there must be a progressive realization of those rights. And a progressive realization does not mean that you say, as is often the case, that the government has no money, but that the government must demonstrate a plan for dealing with the problem. So if, for example, the government decides to set aside 0.001% of the budget for this problem, then it has to be progressive. That year after year, you see some improvement or some investment in that. But we cannot shut out a section of the society because we don't have money when other sections are being catered for. So we completely shut out other sections. And often, sadly, that is the case with people with disability or vulnerable groups in society, that often because they cannot advocate for themselves. And sometimes you feel like mental illness suffers a lot from that, because often it lacks advocates, very good advocates who are themselves victims of a problem or suffering from the problem to campaign for themselves.
In this case, who can prosecute or who can take the seek answers from the Constitution in court in this particular case? Obviously, the mother won't be the one going. But, for instance, Joy News has taken this issue up. Ice Right has taken this issue up. Who can prosecute this case or take this case to court?
You can sue in a representative capacity to represent the child because the child has a disability. And if it's to be taken not just as this particular child's case, but a general problem around the country, any citizen can sue to enforce the rights provided for in the Constitution which are being violated. And even beyond this country, internationally, the treaties that Ghana has signed, including the Child Rights Convention, the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, the African Human Rights Convention itself, the African Human Rights Charter itself, then there have been cases. Gambia, for example, has been sued for poor conditions in mental health facilities and was ordered to improve those conditions, in spite of the fact that Gambia is no richer than Ghana. And so the responsibility cuts across, and you can have various fora for addressing such problems. And the courts can be a good forum for addressing such problems. And in the past, there have been social problems which the courts have given pronouncements on because they touch on constitutional matters. And if you have a detailed article on disability rights, there is certainly ground for litigation on such matters in court, so that the courts can give guidelines on addressing these problems, or in some cases just give straightforward orders to government to implement their responsibilities.
What can the state do moving from here? What does the Constitution enjoins the state to do in such situations?
Well, the Children's Act, clearly the Constitution has given responsibilities here. And the Children's Act, which was passed pursuant to the Constitution, empowers and gives the responsibility to the Department of Social Welfare to take charge of matters like this. And so where there has been a clear violation of the rights of a child, and especially a child with disability, the Department of Social Welfare cannot neglect its responsibilities in such a situation. And so they must lead and take responsibility right from, and I think this is a case which actually deserves attention from the central government to ensure that the department at the local level is taking responsibility for the welfare of this child. Otherwise, it can even incur international responsibilities for Ghana as a country which has signed onto these treaties which impose a responsibility on the state. And in this case, the agency of the state is the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection and the Department of Social Welfare, which falls under that ministry. And so it is clearly their responsibility to take control of a situation like this and ensure that a proper solution is found to end the violations of this innocent child and children who may be in a similar situation like this child.
Yeah. So now we've highlighted the issues, the many right violations that Bless has been subjected to. She was denied the right to health, the right to food, the right to education, the very right to life, if you like, because she could have died. Now we know that the law enjoins the social welfare to take up this particular issue and to bring some redress to Bless. Ice Rights will be following up on this issue, and we will make sure that Bless's situation is changed for the better according to the laws or according to the constitution of this land.